let's look at our warm-up for today. Find the GCF. To find the GCF, you need to list out all your factors. Listing out factors is going to help us with factoring in today's lesson. So you do want to have those factors listed. So you start with 12, put it into the calculator. You can do y equals 12 divided by x. Then go to your table, and we list them all out. So 1 times 12. Then you go down the line, down the x and y pairs. 2 times 6. 3 times 4. And the next one's 4 times 3. That's the same thing as 3 times 4, so I'm not going to repeat it. Then we do 9. So you start out with 1 times 9. So 9 divided by x. 1 times 9, 3 times 3. Once it repeats, you're done. Then we do 18. So 1 times 18. Then go down the line. 2 times 9. 3 times 6. Then it's 6 times 3. So we know we're done. I want y'all to list out the factors because that's going to help us in today's lesson when we're factoring out. We want to know what times the GCF gives us that number. So that's why it's important to have them listed as your pairs. Okay, so let's see. They all share 1. They all share 2. They all share 3. Then we have 4, no. 6, no. 12, no. So 3 is our GCF. Circle 3 on all of them. So we're going to write GCF equals 3. And then we also have to look at the variables. I'm going to underline all the variables. That variable has to be in all of them. If it's not, then you don't have a variable GCF. If it is in all of them, then you look and see what is the smallest exponent. We have 2, 3, and then that would be 1. So that's going to be your GCF, the smallest exponent. Okay, go ahead and put this up, and we're going to look at today's notes. So we're going to talk about greatest common factors again today, but we're actually going to factor them out now. So let's just look back at how we simplify. So let's distribute. Whenever you distribute, you multiply coefficients, which is your number. The big number, not the little number. And you add exponents. Exponent is the little number that's the superscript, the one that's raised to a certain power. So we're going to multiply 7 times 2. And then add exponents. If I have x squared here and x to the first, that'd be x to the third. Then I would multiply 7 times 4. And we carry down the plus, because everything's positive here. There's no negatives. That would change any signs. And we would keep the x squared because there's not one on the 4. Okay, so the reason I did that is so that you remember when we distribute, we multiply coefficients, add exponents. So when we factor out the GCF, we're going to do the opposite of that because we are undoing the distributive property. So So it's kind of like dividing coefficients and subtracting exponents. Always in math, you're learning how to do something, and then you learn how to undo it. Like whenever y'all were in elementary, you learned how to add. Then you learned how to subtract. You undid the adding. Then you learned how to multiply. Then you did the opposite of multiply, which was divide. Now we're doing GCF, so we know how to multiply, which is distribute. The opposite of distribute is to factor. So we're undoing the distributive property. So step 1 is to create your factors list to find your GCF. Circle the largest common factor, which is your GCF. Then you're going to do the same as 2, but with variables. You're going to find that GCF variable. You want the smallest exponent if they all have that same variable. Then your step 4 is going to be rewrite as your GCF out front, and then it's going to look like this. 2 to 3 terms will be left in it. So if you have 2 terms to begin with, you're going to have 2 terms inside this parentheses. If you have 3 terms, you're going to have 3 terms inside the parentheses. But your GCF is going to be out front. And then plus or minus is going to depend on what it was in the original. And also if you're factoring out a negative. So we'll see that here in a minute. So GCF and then number. And you can always check your work by distributing to see that you get what you were given in the very beginning. All right, go ahead and open up your notes. We have some examples we're going to go through. All right, let's look at the first one, 2x plus 16. So step 1 was to list out all of our factors. So we're going to look at 2 and 16. So list out your factors of 2. Well, 2 is pretty easy, because the only factors are 1 times 2. And then 16. So if you're unsure, you can go to y equals, put in 16 divided by x. You should be doing this in your calculator because this is good practice. Once you put it into y equals, hit second graph, and we're going to list them all out. 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4. So once you see a repeat of any of the numbers on that list, then you know that you don't have to continue. You've listed them all. So we look at what is our GCF? 2. Circle it. So let's go ahead and write GCF equals 2. So we found our GCF. So we did step 1 was listing the factors. Step 2 was circle the largest common factor. So step 3 is same as 2 with variables. Look at the original. Do they all have the same letter? No. Since they don't, then the letter will not be part of our GCF. So it's just 2. So now we're going to write as GCF outside the parentheses. And we have 2 terms here, so we're going to have 2 terms here. Since there's a plus here and there's no negatives or anything, we're going to carry down the plus. So this is the template that we're going to complete. So the GCF is 2. So we're at 2. Parentheses. What was 2 times in order to get 2? What was the match here? 1. But since we didn't pull out an x, it's going to stay. Don't let that x go away. 1x. And then 16. What was 16? 2 times 8. So we factored out the 2. So what's left? 8. Okay, so we factored out. Make sure that you have 2 terms just like the original inside. The GCF is out front. And make sure within the parentheses that they don't have anything in common. 1x and 8 don't have anything in common, so we're done. You can check by using distributive. What is 2 times 1x? 2x. What is 2 times 8? Plus 16. See how they're the same thing? So this is our answer. We have factored out a 2 and then rewrote it. So we undid the distributive property. Eight came from, since the GCF was 2, I circled it. What was the match to that? It's right here. That's why I wanted y'all to write your factors, because you can easily get the match to it, and that's what's left inside the parentheses. Okay, let's go to this second example. We have 42 and 12. The only thing different here, look at it. There is a negative up front. So the math police say, hey, you can't have a negative out front like that. You've got to pull it out. So when we rewrite, we are going to pull this out and change all the signs. Factor negative 1. I guess negative. I'm just going to put negative. When it's in the front. That's just a math rule. Factor out that negative when it's in the front. So you're going to pull it out. It's going to be kind of part of the GCF. So whenever I do my GCF, it's going to be negative and then the GCF. Then I'm going to change all the signs inside. So it's going to be minus like that. Because it was plus, now it's going to be negative. So this is kind of the template that's going to look like now. When I take a negative out, it's going to change the sign of everything inside. All right, so now we can start with what our GCF is of 42 and 12. So go ahead and write 42 and write 12. So go through the steps on your calculator of getting those factors. So go to y equals, put in 42 divided by x. And then go to second graph for the table. Let's list them out. 1 times 42. 2 times 21. 3 times 14. That's one that I always forget whenever I try to do it by myself without the calculator. 6 times 7. Then the next one's 7 times 6. So I know we're done. Now do 12. 1 times 12. 2 times 6 and 3 times 4. And then it's 4 times 3, so we know we're done. So look at your numbers. What is the greatest common factor? 6, yep. They share 1, 2, and 3, but 6 is the greatest. Circle it. And the reason we're circling it is because the factor that is with it, the partner, is going to be what's left inside the parentheses. So our GCF is going to be 6. So I wrote that there. So since that negative was out front, we pulled it out. So it's a -6 parentheses. And there's no x that's in both of them, so no variable GCF, so it's going to stay there. What's the match for 6 on 42? 7, so I'm going to underline it. 7. But don't let that x go away. X stays. So 7x is left inside. And then the 12, this is going to be minus because we pulled out a negative, which changed our signs. So we look over here. For 12, the partner or the factor with 6 is 2. So it's -6 parentheses 7x minus 2. Put a box around it. And then to check your work, you would distribute by multiplying. So -6 times 7. -42, and then we got the x. And then -6 times -2, +12. Isn't that the same thing? All right. Let's keep on going. 36x squared and 9. So we need to list out our factors. Go ahead and do that right now.
So this was what we did yesterday, actually. So what I need you to do today is get on YouTube and watch the video. These two. So listen. Look inside there. 12 and 3 still has like you. So you didn't put this in. So that's why it's important to write it. Because you already pulled it out. Yep, good job.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and list out my factors. There's my factors of 36. My factors of 9. And they share 1, a 3, but 9 is the biggest. So be really careful that you choose the biggest. Be just extra, like do an extra little check to make sure that truly is the biggest. I've seen several today that have picked the 3 because they didn't see that 9 was the largest. Okay, so my GCF is 9. this is our first one that we have variables on both terms. So go ahead and underline the variables. Since they both have x, now you pick the smaller exponent. So it wouldn't be x squared, it would just be x. So we took one out. Remember whenever I said we're factoring, we're doing the opposite. We're dividing and subtracting exponents. So that's what we're actually going to do. If we take it out, we're subtracting that away. So it's going to be my GCF, 9x. And now I'll look and see. 9 matches with this 4 over here, so 4. If I took a 9 out, then I'm left with 4. If I took an x out of the x squared, I still have 1 left, so it's 4x. And then 9 matches with 1, so that'll be, and there, remember if it's a plus, we just carry it down. If I had an x and I took an x out, I don't have any x's left to take out. So then I can close my parentheses because we're done. And don't forget, check it. What's 9 times 4? 36. What's x times x? What's 9x times 1? Okay. Plus 9x. Same thing. So checking your answer is going to be an important step to make sure that you have the right answer in case you need to go back and fix it. All right, let's go to this next one. Oh, we have a lot of numbers. We have 3 numbers here. So let's go ahead and list those out. Oh, and you see that negative out front? That's going to tell me I'm going to pull out a negative and change all the signs. So it's going to be negative GCF out front. I'm writing the template down to help you. And then change all of these signs. Minus, minus. So it's going to look like that. If I pull a negative out, that's going to change all the signs. So this was negative, now it's positive. So it's positive, now it's negative. So it's positive, now it's negative. All right, go ahead and list out your numbers. So I'm going to list out 12. We did 12 earlier, so that's helpful. I don't have to go back and put it in the calculator. I can just look up here, rewrite. What's down here? Then I have 20. Did we do 20 earlier? No. Maybe we did it another time. 1 times 20. So put it in. 20 divided by x. 1 times 20, 2 times 10. 4 times 5. And then it says 5 times 4. Okay, so we're done. Okay, and then 16. 1 times 16. 2 times 8, and 4 times 4. Okay, so carefully look and see what is the greatest common factor. Yep, 4. So my GCF is 4. And the last step is look at your variables. x5, x2, and x. They all have an x, so that means it's going to be included. Pick the smallest variable, smallest exponent. Just x. Okay, so we're going to write this, but remember, since that negative's out there, the math police say you got to pull it out. So we're going to do negative 4x, parenthesis, and we need 3 terms. So I look at 12. What was 4 times to get 12. See my match? Underline it. It's 3. If I take one x out, because it's my GCF, how many x's do I have left? It's going to be x to the what power if I take one of them away? X to the 4th. And then minus. Okay, 20. The match was 5, so I underline it right here. So that's what's going to go here. If I have an x squared and I factor out an x, I'm left with an x. Okay, then the last one, I still have minus because I pulled out that negative in the beginning. What's the match on 16 for 4? It's 4. If I have an x, I took one out. I don't have any x's left, so it's just minus 4. And then your last step is just to distribute to check your answer. Negative 4 times 3. Remember, whenever you distribute, you're multiplying and adding exponents. So multiply the numbers. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. Add your exponents. X to the first, x to the 4th. Take x to the 5th. Negative 4 times negative 5 is plus 20. X times x is x squared. And then negative 4x times negative 4x is plus 16x.